It's time for This Week in WordPress, episode number 236. It was recorded on Monday, the 9th of Jan, 2023. It's entitled, Go. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and I will be joined today by my guests. They are, in no particular order, Bob Don. I am also joined by Bud Kraus, as well as Arindo Duque. It's a WordPress podcast, so we spend about half of the podcast talking about WordPress. And here are the stories. First of all, we're talking about the things that have changed from 5.9 up until 6.2, and there's an awful lot. We also dwell on the subject of Gutenberg 14.9 and some recent changes, which are really nice, especially in terms of global styles. We talk about the Page Builder Summit, which was an event, or is an event, that I'm going to be putting on in February, and whether or not you would like to sponsor us. And we also talk about something that I'm doing next week with Peach Neri. It's a UX UI show, and you're free to submit your sites for her expert opinions. We also talk about a new project which helps you design contact forms for Contact Form 7 in the Gutenberg UI. And then we go down a real rabbit hole talking about LastPass, and I really get all my anxiety out into the open because everything of mine is there. And there's a few other bits and pieces that we touch on as well. It's all coming up next on This Week in WordPress. This episode of the WP Builds podcast is brought to you by GoDaddy Pro, the home of managed WordPress hosting that includes free domain, SSL, and 24/7 support. Bundle that with the Hub by GoDaddy Pro to unlock more free benefits to manage multiple sites in one place, invoice clients, and get 30% off new purchases. Find out more at go.me/WP Builds. Hello, episode number 236 of the This Week in WordPress show. Just a bit of advice: if you are going to eat a banana, actually eat the banana, don't eat the skin, which is what I just did, and it tastes awful, is all I'm going to say. And on that bombshell, we're going to introduce our guests today. We're joined, like we are so many times, by the fabulous Bob. How you doing, Bob?
Hey, I'm doing good. I am still thinking about that banana,
There's no way that's getting out of your head.
Yeah,
that's going to be with you. I'm going to do the proper introduction. Bob is the connector over at Do the Woo, which is a fabulous podcast, by the way, a community for WooCommerce builders, and is also working. I forgot about this, and is also working with some Brit podcaster on a new project this year called WP Office Hours. I have no idea what that is. If you see him wandering around aimlessly at WordCamp Asia, please guide him to the lost and found section. It's a pleasure. How was the new year, Bob?
It was very good, nice and quiet, and enjoyed it. I guess I'm all ready for the new year, whatever it holds.
Yeah, well, okay, let's see how it goes. 2023. We're also joined by Bud, first time on the podcast, Bud Kraus. Bud, sorry, I just called you Kraus. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Bud, is your
worse.
Surname in fact pronounced Kraus, or have I butchered that?
It is. With
No,
it's only one S and no E.
Okay, got
Everybody
it.
always
So
wants
it's
to spell it wrong.
Kraus. Yeah, well, I'll do the
Yes,
proper
that's right.
introduction before we natter. Bud is a WordPress instructor, having taught thousands of online courses, and in class from all over the world. He currently has recorded videos featuring the Gutenberg block editor, as well as doing live hands-on classes. Bud doesn't help build new sites. He rather focuses on bringing new life to broken down WordPress sites that are in need of remediation. He's been very active in the WordPress community in and around the NYC area and beyond. As he often says, WordPress software is pretty good, but the community is so much better. Bravo. I applaud that sentiment. That's great. And did you have a nice year, Bud?
I did, but I was really busy because all of a sudden I've just gotten so much different kinds of work and all that I was kind of working through the holidays. But when you enjoy your work, is it really work?
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's not drudgery. Let's say that.
Yes. Bob and I were chatting and had the exact opposite discussion a minute ago, where we planned to do absolutely loads during the holidays, and sat on a chair. Yeah. Anyway, very nice to have you with us. I hope you come back. And I hope
Thank you for
enjoy it.
having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And last but by no means least, we have Arindo Duque. How are you doing, Arindo?
I'm good.
Yeah, well, Arindo is the founder and main developer at WP Ultimo. If you're into WordPress as a service, then go and check that out, wpultimo.com. It's a plugin that transforms WordPress multi-site into the website as a service platform. When not in front of a computer, drinking copious amounts of coffee, he can be found pretending to know how to play different instruments. Go on, which instruments do you pretend to play?
We have this beautiful electronic drum set here right behind me, which I'm not playing at the moment because we recently discovered that my upstairs neighbor, like his main bedroom is right above us.
Oh.
And he can listen to everything that I do on the office. So
if it's an electronic one, can you not like put headphones in and it just makes a sort of tapping sound? But I guess that's not quite as much fun, right?
But no, it is supposed to be as silent as you can get, but you're still hitting things with a piece of wood. So there's always a amount of sound that you can't get rid of, and it looks like that the walls here are pretty thin.
No, it is really interesting to me because I interview quite a lot of people, and very often we're on a camera. And I've said this before: it's always amazing to me the overlap between musical instruments and WordPress. And it may be that, I don't know, Bob, maybe in your past there was music, and maybe Bod there was in your past. Certainly there was in mine.
Oh, I plead guilty. I plead guilty to the idea of how did Arindo say this? Trying to play or pretending to play.
Pretending
I
to
pretend
know
to play
how to play
keyboard. I pretend to play guitar, and this pretension has been going on for years.
Yeah,
well, that's all I can.
All I can say is that I very often see guitars and stuff lying around in the background, so you're not alone. Well, we're here to talk about WordPress, but before we do that, a few bits of housekeeping. First of all, we've got one comment coming in. It's from Peter, who usually gives us a weather report at the beginning of the show. Happy New Year from Connecticut in the US, New England, where it's currently 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 on the mostly cloudy sky. I just love that he does this every week. There's a little bit of weather forecasting. That's brilliant. It's about the same here, actually. To be honest, there's cloudy skies and it's about 0 degrees centigrade. And Anissa, I think is how you pronounce that name. She's saying hello. Hello, indeed. If anybody wants to share the show, I'd be most appreciative. The quickest way to do that is just to go to this URL, wpbuilds.com/live. If you go there, you'll need to be logged into Google because it's YouTube comments. Alternatively, if you're in our Facebook group, you can go to the Facebook group and just search around until you find the live video. But you'll need to click a link in the thread at the top. The link is chat.restream.io/FB. Otherwise, you will be anonymous, which is fine. If you want to be anonymous, that's fine. But some people prefer to actually show us their name and so on. So if you fancy giving us a comment, please do that. Let's get stuck into the show, though. See what we've got in store for us this week, second week of January. First thing to say is this is our website, wpbuilds.com. If you fancy keeping in touch with what we do, go and put your email address in there and click the subscribe button. We don't hammer it. It's like basically when we produce content, so twice a week, we'll send you an email, and that's really about it. So there's that. The other thing to say is we'll move on to the articles, and the first thing is WP Tavern. We always end up at WP Tavern each week, pretty much. Sarah Gooding wrote a piece on the 5th of January entitled Gutenberg 14.9's New Magic, Push Block Changes to Global Styles. To be honest with you, there are several things in this article about other things that have happened in Gutenberg 14.9, but the only one that I want to concentrate on is this, what I consider to be really cool new feature. From now on, if you install the Gutenberg plugin, and very soon you'll have it in the WordPress vanilla install, you'll be able to push a global styles button. The button is actually labeled Push Changes to Global Styles. And in any block that matches that, so let's say, for example, I don't know, it's a headings block or it's a H1 in a headings block or whatever. it will push it and make it global. So you won't find yourself going around the website and discovering that titles over here look different to titles over there. It'll just push it out globally. It sounds like a little thing, but if you've got a website which is maintained by, I don't know, 5 or 6 different content editors, they might have their own variation on what a heading ought to look like. And you end up with this sort of patchy approach to your branding. So hopefully this will solve that. You can see on the screen, if you're watching this live, basically here it is. It's just this little button at the bottom, little blue button, and it does that. So I just think that's dead cool, another little incremental change. So if anybody's got anything to say about that, now is the moment to say it.
That's not incremental.
Yep.
I think it's a big change. And what I was wondering as you're going through this is, how will third-party block developers tie their work into this new feature? Because they're going to need to do that. So
so for example, I don't know if anybody from, for example, Cadence, Kathy Zant's often in here.
Right.
I don't know how that's approached in something like Cadence, for example. I'm imagining that there is a global setting somewhere in there where you can take care of this all by yourself. This is, of course, just the sort of default editor with no customization. Right. It's just what drops into a WordPress site. So you're right. It's a kind of neat little feature, but I'm guessing that third parties have probably got their own variation on this already.
Yeah, I could have used this a couple days ago. Yeah, it would have saved me about 5 hours of work.
So, really? Yeah. You just had to go back through and
it's perfect for somebody that's psychotic like me if I do get into actually changing stuff on my site, because, it's like, I get this moment of, there's, 200 other posts or 600 other places this is, and I have to decide whether I'm going to do it or not. So, yeah, it's cool. I love global stuff.
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of like a big quality of life improvement. I also had like a couple of places where I could have used a feature like that the past couple of weeks, because like you come up with a variation of a particular block in a specific template and it looks better, and then you have to go to all the different templates and update, and it takes a lot of time. So it's one of those like small tweaks that can make you like 100 times more productive. So I think it's a great improvement.
I imagine that in an ideal world, if you're in any way connected with a website, you'll have written all this stuff down, and H1 is this, H2 is this, and it will always be thus. But when it was the theme taking care of all of this, that was fine. But now blocks are just taking control of almost everything, and anybody who gets into a website can do anything with any block. Then it wrestles that control back to each individual person, and it will go wrong. So if as roles and permissions come in and you can lock certain things down, all of this will be great. Your H1 will always look at this, and the content editors won't be able to fiddle with this. So quality of life improvement. I'm sure that'll save us. Well, the two of you, it would have saved you a ton of time. Yeah. So there we go. All right. So that was. Go on.
I have one little other small comment on this post. Like as you mentioned, there's a bunch of different announcements on that single post, even though like the global styles is the main one highlighted in there. But as a developer, we develop plugins, so we're just starting to get to know how block themes work a little bit more on the technical level now. But one change that I really appreciate is that starting at this version, you'd be able to limit specific block patterns to specific kinds of templates. And for me, like once you get started, like installing different plugins that add a bunch of different block patterns, it starts to get a little bit confusing, messy. There's a lot of blocks in there, patterns. So the option to limit specific patterns that are only relevant to specific templates, to those templates, I also think that it's a great addition. It makes things like easier to navigate for the end user.
Are you making lots of use of Rindo with WP Ultimate? Are you going to be starting to make a lot of use of these kind of things? So So your plugin, you can, I don't know, you can make it so that a website is, you pick a template and that's your new website. You click a button and
Mm-hmm.
your new version of your website has got this particular layout and theme and so on. Are you going to be starting to use these things, the site editing capabilities and things like the REST API and theme.json
Yeah.
to enable this, because it's just, well, it's free and it's the way it's going to be done in the future?
Yeah, we are. So one of the main challenges that we face right now is that we deal with multi-site, and depending on the number of sites that you add, it can start to get like performance starts to be an issue. And what we've seen is that most of the performance complaints that we get, they happen on the WP admin side of things,
Huh.
because on the front end you can cache things pretty aggressively. So the complaints that we get about multi-site performance, they're mostly concentrated on the WP admin side of things. So the way that we're planning to solve this is to basically allow our customers to create custom admin panels on the front end. That way we can make use of all the benefits of like aggressive caching and things like that, prevent the loading of all the plugins that might be installed, and doing that with blocks, and more specifically block patterns, in a way that we can like provide certain screens pretty much in a pre-built
Yep.
as a starting point. Is it was something that we were waiting to get to this point to be able to really make use of.
So
So
in the future, rather than, let me see if I understood this correct. In the future, in WP Ultimo, rather than log into WordPress and then be in the traditional admin area that we all know about, you'll be basically on a page fiddling with the settings for WP Ultimo, right? Have I got
yeah.
that right? It'll be a page
Mhm.
made up of blocks with all the settings in, so you can cache it. And okay, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah, that's kind of cool. That's, yeah, I haven't really come across anybody doing that yet, so that's really interesting. We should talk. There's a podcast in there.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so right, so you've got a different take on that. That's really interesting. Yeah, for me, the bit was all about the global styles, which in Page Builder land, we've been doing this for ages, and now it's really nice to see this inside of a block.
I've got a question about the patterns that you were talking about, Arundo, which is the way I see it, or let me see if I understand what you're talking about, is that when I'm building a page, or any kind of post type, the patterns would only be for those particular templates or those particular post types. Is that right? It would be just, instead of just general patterns, it would be specific patterns. Let's say a developer created certain patterns, it would only be targeted for. Right now, there's the ability to do that through a modal. Is that how it would be done? Through a modal,
I'm
or
not
just
sure
in
on
the
the.
inserter?
I think it's on the inserter, but I'm not sure
Through
how
the
it works
inserter.
for post types. The post talks
Yeah.
specifically about like specifically templates, so like a 404 template,
Right. Right.
search results, things like that,
Right.
which makes
Mhm.
sense because you don't want a 404
Right.
block pattern with an error message to be showing up on
Right.
every
Right.
block editor page that you have, and every single piece of content on your website. So it contextualizes the different patterns in a way that
For the
I think
template.
it's more intuitive to the end user.
Mhm.
So I think it's a great addition. Yeah,
But that's
I
through the
am.
inserter,
I
right?
think so.
Okay. All right.
I've now eaten some banana, so I'm going to struggle through this
Okay,
next
on
bit.
to the next thing,
Yeah, that's
Nathan.
right. On
No,
to the
I'm
next
just
thing.
kidding. You just
Do excuse me. The what I find remarkable about all this is that I watch WordPress fairly closely. I mean, I'm not quite as studious as some other people, without a doubt, but I watch it fairly closely, and it's still amazing to me how confusing a lot of this can be. There's just so much going on all at the same time. I watched a video recently with a bunch of people who were talking about theming, and it was a lot of people from Automatic and people who are interested in the future of full site editing and all of that. So you probably know who was on the screen. But I got lost so fast because there's just so much going on, and they're talking about things which were happening probably days ago, and GitHub pull requests and all of that kind of stuff. And it was like, whoa, it's all moving really fast. And actually, that leads me nicely. First segue of the year, get in. It leads me nicely to this piece, which is a video, actually. So I'm not going to show the video because I'll get told off by YouTube. But this is a video by Anne McCarthy, which I wanted to alert people to. I'm guessing that if you just go and Google this, I'll put a link in the show notes. But the video is called Site Building with WordPress 5.9 versus 6.2, which is still a work in progress. 6.2 is not yet out of the gate, but we're getting there. And she did this video not that long ago. And what's really amazing is how much has changed in the time since 5.9 to 6.2. Now, honestly, I can't tell you how many months that is, but it's not that many. It's within a reasonable amount of time. Was it just 12 months? Yeah. But it was really obvious looking. So she splits the video broadly in half. She shows how we did it in 5.9. Which at the time felt, revolutionary and new and interesting and usable and what have you. And then she shows you what's going to be coming in 6.2. And it's basically the exact same things, but with extra bells and whistles. And I just think it's a video worth watching because if you're faltering in your confidence in Gutenberg, and I know quite a lot of people are, they're sort of, they'd rather stick with their page builder or what have you, and can't quite see where the project is heading. This is a real way of restoring your faith in it all, I think, because it just goes to show in 11 minutes, roughly, how much work has been done and how people have been listened to, and when people have suggested new features, where possible, they've been added in. So really, it's just me saying, bravo. I've not yet seen anybody produce a piece of content like that, where they just compare 1 year ago with this year in a video. Normally, it's just a tirade of, okay, this is coming next, this is coming next. And you really don't see what the context is. And so I thought that was a really nice video. I don't know if any of you three actually managed to see it, but it just made me feel like we were in safe hands, really.
Yeah. And something that's even, if you go back to, real quick, if you go back to, WordPress 5.0 and look at that compared to where we are today.
Yeah,
that's remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. I mean, it is literally, building taking a twin engine airplane and turning it into a space shuttle while it's flying. Not so easy to do.
No. I think she did actually make
remarkable.
No. Yeah, really remarkable. Sorry, Arindo, I think I cross-talked you.
No, like I have conflicting views about this because I'm able to put myself in the shoes of the end user, the people that are like logs into the WordPress admin, it's making changes to some pages, adding a new post, stuff like that. And when I see this video, like that person, it amazes me. I get the same feelings that you guys get. As a developer, though, this video is extremely anxiety inducing because you get to see how, like, every time that she displayed something that changed drastically, I had a corresponding open ticket on our support system telling us that something on our blocks broke and that we need to fix it. So it was like it was a trip down memory lane on how fast development cycle it's great for the end user, I think. But at the same time, if you have to maintain compatibility with all of those changes happening at that pace, if you have a small team such ours, it can prove itself to be a challenge. It's one of the reasons why it took us so long to really start to develop things for the block editor, because I didn't feel like we had the resources to keep up with the pace of development and changes that they were making. But like nowadays, the number of breaking changes that they're pushing is very, very small. So it's almost like it feels like it's stable now, at least in terms of development. You can build for it with a certain degree of confidence that things will not break from that point moving forward, which is great.
That's a really interesting perspective, and to be completely honest with you, it's not one that I had even considered. I'm not a developer. I don't have plugins, and I don't have clients in that way. And yeah, that's fascinating. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. If memory serves, in the video, I think she said that 6.2 marks the end of phase 2 of the Gutenberg
Yeah.
project. So site editing, as we're now calling it, is going to be over by the end of this.
Well, it'll continue.
Well, okay, yeah,
refinement.
okay.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the main focus. The main focus
Yeah.
is shifting over to consecutive, or whatever the word is, consecutive editing,
Collaboration.
collaboration, yeah, aka Google Docs kind of thing. But it did make me wonder, if the pace of development will slow down, and so rather than there being a whole bucket load of things released every few months, it'll be more like one thing each time a new fresh install of WordPress comes out. But also I did kind of wonder, it still feels like the whole site editing thing still feels really quite confusing to me. So I await to see what 6.2 brings, and whether or not it's going to be, do we throw our page builders under a bus yet, or do we still feel that they're like, way ahead in terms of the features?
Well, something like that can really induce a lot of feelings, because you could be looking at it and thinking, my God, I didn't even know this was happening in 5.9. Now I really feel left behind. Yeah. So, it can go the spectrum there with the whole thing, looking at that, depending who's interested. I imagine most typical users wouldn't be interested in watching a video like that. Kind of, they want to focus on what's happening right now and stuff. But I can understand Arindo and, the anxiety he felt, because it can be like, oh my God, now what's the next one? So interesting stuff, but yeah, cool.
Yeah, definitely. If there's nothing else to say, I think, Bod, did you have anything to finish off?
Yeah, just with the rapid change, especially in the block editor, it is impossible, I found, to create any kind of course, pre-recorded content. It's just, it's insane. I tried it and I'm insane. So I happen to be teaching a live class next week, two days next week. And that's the only way you can teach WordPress now, is through live classes, because recorded stuff is just ridiculous. It's just, it's insane.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to, when I think about it, I don't even know how to do this anymore, because there's so much now that I consider fundamental teaching, that how am I going to do this in 2 days?
Yeah.
Talk fast.
Yeah. On the one hand, we want it all to be progressing rapidly, and on the other hand, we want it to not be progressing rapidly.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know quite where that seesaw ends up.
And one last thing, as people have seen through this whole process, and been reminded of how slow people are to adopt to new changes. Maybe all of us here are more readily accepting new changes, but the public forget about it. It's just not. It's just going to take a very long time for most people to embrace Gutenberg. They don't right now.
No. I'm going to just segue a little bit and throw in a couple of comments. The first one is from Max. Thank you, Max. And it's just a generally nice thing to say. He says, "Happy New Year. Wishing you a successful and productive year ahead. May all of your goals and projects be met with success. Here's to a great start to the year." Yay! Thank you, Max. That's so kind. I appreciate the sentiment, and I hope that it's true. And reflecting it right back at you. And also Michelle Frechette joining us from New York State or New York City. I never know which one. I know you're in New York State, but she's in Rochester, New York. Yeah, that's right. But anyway, thank you, Michelle, for joining us. I appreciate it. Right, forgive the blatant promotion, but I'm going to blatantly promote something because, why not? We have the Page Builder Summit coming round again. It's actually version 5 of the Page Builder Summit. It's in February, so it's actually not that far away. It's in about 6 weeks or something like that, 20th of February, and we're looking for a few sponsors. If you are connected in any way to, I don't know, WordPress company or a WordPress service or something like that, and you fancy being a part of the summit, it's a quid pro quo. It's the usual thing. We put your logo on. We've got ads and videos and things like that. But this is the page to go to. It's pagebuildersummit.com/sponsors. pagebuildersummit.com/sponsors. And if you scroll down, there's, the usual laundry list of why I think, at least anyway, this is a good idea. It's been pretty popular in the past. As I said, we've done 4. This is version 5. So yeah, reach out. You can always reach me. My email address is, the usual, what you'd imagine. It's admin@ and then wpbuilds.com, or there's a contact form on our webpage if you want to go and check that out. That's the first thing. So there's number 1 bit of promotion out the way. I'll be promoting it every week, so get used to it.
Can I just say something really quick, Nathan? Yeah. Can I just interject real quick about the Page Builder Summit, because you and I don't really know each other, and I do want to say, I think it's one of the finest online presentations around, period. I mean, the quality of your speakers and their presentations is first rate, and I've enjoyed them so much. I mean, I usually don't pay attention to any of this stuff. I've almost always go to your as many of your sessions. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you. The check is in the mail. Thanks, Bod.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
that's what I was looking for.
Yeah. Thanks for sponsoring us. So yeah, but no, that's very kind of you. I appreciate that. I can't, in all honesty, claim to have any any jurisdiction over what the presenters say. It just so happens that we've got a bunch of really good people coming on, and this year is no different. We've got a whole bunch of people coming on. Anyway, there we go. First thing. Second thing is next week, not this week, we're doing the first of our UI UX sessions with Peach and Neri. We've got a few websites submitted already, but what she does basically is cast her eye over some WordPress websites and gives you a free appraisal. She normally spends about 20 minutes, and it's just initial thoughts. She's very deliberate in that she doesn't look at it beforehand, so what she sees is what she's viscerally thinking when she sees the website. If you've got a project that you're working on and you would like somebody with her expertise to have a look at it, feel free to go to this page. It's wpbuilds.com/UI. Fill in the form. And also we're going to be featuring some deceptive design, which used to be called dark patterns. So if you've got any examples of people on the web who are just really abusing your trust and making you click buttons that you never intended to click, I've come up with some whoppers over Christmas, people trying to pull money out of my wallet for upsells to this and that, and it really feels like I'm doing something that different to what I am. You can include that in the form as well. So there we go. That's going to be on the 17th of January, which is a Tuesday, 3 p.m. UK time. Same page as you're viewing this, probably, wpbuilds.com/live. Right, okay. Whew. The promotion is over. Sorry, guys. Apologies. Munir Kamal, who is just fabulous. Justin on the Tavern always used to love writing things about Munir's projects because he's done so many, particularly around the block editor. Just thought this was really nice. You might want to pick this one up for your clients. So it's a free plugin. And it's called Block Editor Kit for Contact Form 7, or abbreviated CF7 blocks. And what he's done, I think, is a bit of a stroke of genius. Contact Form 7 is a free, I'm sure there's loads of free plugins for form. It seems to me almost like the default. If you don't pay for Gravity Forms or whatever, Formidable Forms or whatever it may be, then it feels like you're probably likely to have come across Contact Form 7, totally free. But the UI is a little bit lacking, shall we say. Well, what Munir has done is he's created a block interface to build out your forms. And if you're looking at the screen, which you may be doing, if not, just if you're listening to this on audio, apologies, but you imagine a thing like Gravity Forms where you've got a panel on the left with all of the different things that you could throw in. So it's a paragraph, it's a URL, it's a telephone, it's a text area, it's an email. You drag those in, rearrange them, put your title in and some pre-filled form fields and what have you, and you're done. And it's just a really, really nice implementation. It is free. Contact Form 7 is free. And so now you've got an option to make fairly complicated forms trivially easy. So bravo. I have to be honest, I haven't installed it and I haven't played with it. But Mania really genuinely does seem to be one of those people in the WordPress space who I'm going to say I would trust it to work. Let's just put it that way. I have every faith that he would have done a good job. It's got 1 5-star review at the moment, and so it's on WordPress.org, and as I said, the name of it is Block Editor Kit for Contact Form 7. And the icon is like of a little mountain. So bravo, Mania. I think that's really good. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I remember Contact 7. God, it's like I don't even know when.
Forever, right?
It was
forever.
Yeah, it was like over a decade ago.
That was it.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
It seems like but it. How many people maybe have used it for a long time? Simple sites that just I'm not going to change this. It does the job. It's all I need. Now he's given them an opportunity to do a little bit more with it. And so kind of taking something, I mean, it's a different approach than most plugin makers take, something that's been around that long, and to add some spice to it, and a little bit more better, UI and everything. So yeah, I think it's it's like, wow, you almost, when you first see it, you think, that's crazy. It's been around forever. And somebody, I think before the show said, why didn't this happen earlier or something? But it's interesting, and I think it's great what he's trying to do, and maybe it will bring especially people that have been using it, and even new users. So cool.
Yeah, I'm just trying to go through some of the screenshots on the show, but the zooming in on the WordPress.org website seems to drag the header in, so it's quite hard for me to actually show you. But essentially, what you're looking at is a UI which is really up to date, modern. There's nothing weird about it. There's nothing janky, and I feel that although Contact Form 7 itself was a perfectly serviceable plugin, I feel that maybe it wasn't quite as easy to use, creating the actual form fields and all that. There was some sort of disconnect. But now that you can build this in what is a familiar UI, and I think you've hit the nail on the head, Bob. I think really, if you've got a client who just has a little brochure website, they don't want to get involved in licenses for a plugin where really all they want is a contact form. It's not doing some sort of mortgage calculation or, uploading tremendously difficult, complicated fields or pricing calculations and all that. It's just a contact form. This now makes it easy for your clients to do just that. So yeah. Anyway, Bod, Arindo, if you've got anything.
No.
Yeah.
Except
the thing that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go for Arindo first. Go on.
Yeah, the thing that Contact Form 7 was the first, I think it was pretty much the first WordPress plugin that I ever installed.
Right.
Because whenever you're building your first website, the first thing that you want to build is a contact form, and it's right there. Like you don't even need to search for forms. It's right there on the first page when you go to the install new plugins page. And I was thinking, how would I go about blockifying Contact Form 7? And the thing that strikes me is that I don't think it's that hard to do, because the way you construct a form inside Contact Form 7 is pretty much you add some text and then you drop a couple of shortcodes.
Yeah.
Wherever you want a form input to show, which is pretty much what the block editor does. So it's incredible that we had to wait this long for someone to come up with a block interface for Contact Form 7. It's truly mind-boggling that it took this long.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm just let me just put the screen on. So I don't know if this gives you some insight, but if you look at this screenshot, you end up with this little generated shortcode on the side. So we're obviously we're in this radio button field, please rate our website. And then we've got this output shortcode here, radio user rating default and what have you. So I'm guessing it is literally using the way that the method that you just mentioned, but then it's putting all these different things, like you can turn the label on and off. Looks like you can put a label first and the checkbox last. There's things like dimensions. And as I said, I haven't played with it. So maybe there's some sort of styling options in there. You know, you can see at the top, you can change it from a tick box, like a literal square box with a tick in it, to a little radio button. But I don't know if you can do things like rounded corners on the forms and change the colors of the borders and things like that. I don't know if he's gone that far with it, but yeah, it's great. I agree. It's been long in the making, and Munir, thank you for doing it. Bod, sorry, you were going to say.
No, I'll just be brief. It's just, I remember this was one of the very first plugins I taught like 12 years ago at New York City. Yeah. And the students didn't like it because they had to look at something like code.
Yes.
Like short codes or whatever, and HTML or Markdown. I can't even remember what the heck it was. But I sort of, in certain ways, regret that we're losing all that. I mean, I know we're, in the no-code era, and that's the wave of the future or the wave of the present. But as a guy that used to teach, HTML, CSS, little JavaScript and stuff like that, well, you sort of kind of miss all that. Anyway,
all you've got to do, Bod, is just never use this plugin and keep banging the gong of the old.
That's right. Go back to Contact Form 7, right. Which I haven't seen in years. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I confess I haven't used it. I've ended up with all sorts of different form plugins in my arsenal, and Contact Form 7 just because the ones that I've opted for do a lot more. I've kind of always just installed them, but this is free, completely free. The whole package is free. So yeah, if you've got client websites, simple website, just need a contact form. There you go. Oh, look, Peacher dropped in. Peacher Neri, we were just mentioning her. She says, hello. Looks like she's arrived just at the right time. Well, we've finished your bit, Peacher. Sorry. Yeah, we've done. And yes, she says, please come. Please come. So that's, February the 17th. Join us. And Michelle Frechette says, WS Form is the best, though. Yes, I'm sure that Mark Westgard would agree. Yeah.
Tremendous. Yeah.
Tremendous indeed. WS Form. Go and check it out. It's worth looking at. Okay, let's move on. This is the next one. Bob brought this to my attention. I don't quite know how I missed this, but Bob brought this to my attention. It's as simple as the title. WordCamp Europe 2023 Speaker Applications Open. Organisers call for more interactive sessions. Anything you want to say, Bob, before I get into my screed?
Yeah, I think what caught me on this was that, and what's happened with, I don't know if anybody's gone to, listening. I know some people have WordCamp Europe or WordCamp US. I think the sessions were a little bit light. And I think that was due to 2 years of, us all being locked up and finally getting together. So a lot of people spent more time talking with people and interacting and stuff. So I think that kind of had an effect on it. And I think this is something they're trying to pull people more into the sessions, because I think over time, I don't know if you've noticed it at different WordCamps, that for the amount of people that are there, it seems like it's there could be a lot fuller sessions. And it's just a way, I think, to try to bring people in instead of making it I don't want to say same old sessions, because that's unfair to the speakers, because they aren't, but just a little bit more interactive and get a little bit more creative. And I think they've been kind of talking about this for a while. I've heard different mumblings about it, but it's just, I think it's a good approach to try to bring some variety and a little bit more hands-on, rather than just sitting and listening to somebody all the time.
Yeah, so there seemed to, I don't know if it was like a survey or something, but they somehow got data from the attendees of WordCamps, and it seems that there was a general consensus they would like more interactive sessions. And the example that Sarah Gooding gives in this piece was there was a presentation, I don't remember where, WordCamp in the Czech Republic, it says, where the security researcher set up a Wi-Fi hotspot, and then probably didn't tell the participants. Well, maybe he did. I don't know, but demonstrated what was going on with their Wi-Fi, and all of that interactivity makes it really engaging. And you would imagine that the workshops that are being put on at WordCamps at the moment, they seem to be in the ascendancy. They seem to be getting a lot of interaction because people like to show up and open their laptop and try stuff out, don't they? So yeah. Anyway, it looks like the speaker application is going to be open until I think early February is what I have in my mind. Let me see if I can find it in the article. Yeah, first week of February. And you'll receive a response by the second week of March. And the event itself is going to be on June the 9th to the 10th in Athens, Georgia. No. Athens, Athens, Greece. yeah. WordCamp Europe near Atlanta. No. Is anybody going? Arindo, are you going to go? I know that you're based in Europe now, and I saw you at WordCamp Europe in Portugal. That was really nice. We talked about sushi, if memory serves.
Yeah.
But and I've got a story about sushi with Bob as well.
Oh, don't even listen. We'll save that for another show.
Sushi seems to be
funny story, Nathan. The last time that I saw my AirPods Pro. Was that time when we sat down on that bench to talk about sushi?
Right.
That was the last time that I saw my AirPods Pro.
Yeah, and funnily enough, that was the first time I ever found a pair of AirPods in my.
Oh, really? No, because I
really. What, you left them on the bench when we were talking?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, got it. Oh, that's the effect I have on people. They forget things. Oh, yeah. So sushi stories. But Arindo, in all seriousness,
lovely memory now.
Yeah, thank you. Do you think you'll be going? Will you make the effort to go to Athens?
Yeah, I will. I'm actually considering submitting a talk proposal. But now that I know that I have to make it all interactive, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's all interactive. It feels to me like they're gonna. Maybe there's a little bit of a weighting towards interactive, but I think you could do mind you, aren't there constraints around? Like, for example, you're not allowed if you've got a paid product, you can't show it on the screen, or so that there are
I think that there are restrictions to that, but the thing is, I don't feel the least bit comfortable doing that. So whenever I do talks and WordCamps and stuff like that, I try to distance myself as much as possible from talking anything related to one of our products.
Yes. But you're perfect then. You are the ideal candidate for
It just feels
well, I think
weird.
Yeah. And I think it'll be a mix. Yeah, I'd say go for it because, you still want the sessions. I mean, people sometimes somebody will go to a session and they don't want to be interactive. They want to just sit and learn. So I think they just probably are hoping to look for a good balance.
Peacher just made a point. Comment. She says it's all lovely, but an interactive session takes even longer to prepare than a lecture, and the speaker needs to be very experienced. I imagine only the ones able to offer, and this will be those paid to be there. Yeah, it's an interesting point. The amount of time that you'd have to put in up front. I know, Peacher, it's a topic that is close to your heart about the equity of who gets to go to WordCamps, and also, whether people are paid for their contributions and so on. So yeah, that's a good point. If something does take a lot more time, and also there's just that risk that something will go wrong if you make it interactive. We've all been there, I mean, Elon Musk with his little hammer on the car window. It's unbreakable. Oh, right, okay. Those kind of things, if it goes wrong in front of a crowd, it is a bit of egg on the face, isn't it? So yeah, good point. But I think Arindo, you should go for it. That's my personal thought.
Second vote there.
Yeah. 2 votes, 2 out of 4. Bod, what are you saying? Arindo should go for it or not?
Oh, absolutely. And not only that,
3 out of 3.
Wow, how could I be disagreeable? No, actually, I want to apply to speak too, so you should not apply.
Oh,
so there. I want to clear the field Get out of the way. Anyway, no, I wasn't going
That
to
takes
apply
so
to
much
speak.
pressure out of my shoulders.
All right.
Thank you.
So I wasn't going to apply to speak, but we did get a WP Tavern post this week or last week about not what Nathan, what you were talking about, but also I know they're always interested in people speaking who have a disability, and I'm very fortunate to have one. So I'm legally blind, and I spoke at WordCamp Boston a bunch of years ago on a topic called "My Way with WordPress" and how I use computers and WordPress and teaching and all that, as and how my legal blindness fits into all that, and it's so. And then I also applied, I'll make this as quick as I can, to Chicago and DC. Same topic, both accepted. And of course, COVID came in the way and blew that all out. So I am going to apply to give this talk about, being not disabled, but visually impaired, and how I use technology to achieve the things I do. And the benefits, what I've learned would help other people too. So that's usually a popular kind of a topic, and I hope that they pick me. Now, the other thing that this post mentioned was a site called Diversity in Tech. So I registered with that. Hopefully, if I get picked to speak, I may find a sponsor, because going to Greece at that time of the year is pricey. My wife and I have been talking, why do they do this in June? It's so expensive in June. Why can't you just do this in March? We know, all that stuff. But my wife has enough points to go. I don't have enough points, travel points, but I sure would like to go to Greece and be with everybody. And and hopefully the first step would be in applying and maybe being accepted to speak. So we'll see.
Yeah, can I just interject something real quick, Nathan?
Yeah, of course.
Just very quick. Anybody that is interested in that, do join the WordPress Slack channel, the diverse speaker support channel, because they will actually do some really good. I follow it myself, and just to see what's going on. But it is on the Make WordPress Slack channel. Because they do have workshops, they do have different things to help give tips, and they actually have mentors in there that will help you if you're thinking of speaking, at a WordCamp and you've never done it and stuff. And so there's some, So anyway, for anybody listening or anyone, it's a good channel.
One other thing too, when I filled out the form when I submitted to Diversity in Tech, one of the things they get a whole list of like, are you this, are you that? One of the things they said is, are you of an age in which one does not expect you to be comfortable with technology? Something like that. I go, oh, I can check that box. So you always look for like so if that helps, not a problem, because none of my friends are comfortable with tech. So
on that point, I think there are a few. Now, the only one actually that comes to mind, the name of it is, don't they have a diversity fund for attending
They do
events? In fact, I've got a feeling that Peacher might be able to speak to that. So Peacher, if you're still listening, and you could clarify for Bod whether there's an application to be put in there, that'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, and they also WordCamp Asia, there's one of their pages. I'm not on the site right now, but they are asking companies to let them know, for they can kind of have a bucket list of companies that are willing to help support speakers to get to WordCamp. So they're putting that together. I think it's on, or is it? Yeah, I believe it was on WordCamp Europe, or is WordCamp Asia? I think all of them might be doing it now. More, but go check out the sites, because they do have. I saw something came across my radar just yesterday that was about that, and I think it was an announcement, might have been from WordCamp.
I'm not meaning to suggest, Bod, that these resources are abundant or anything, but I do know they are out there. So it might be I imagine you'd have to apply and probably be in a vetting procedure. Oh, there we go. Peach has written something. She says, yes, Bob, there is a general application.
Yeah. I think what you'll do is you'll apply to each of the companies, because the companies, WordCamp isn't
They're
going to be
different,
making a
right,
decision.
right.
They're just going to, and I know that hopefully by the time WordCamp Europe comes around, we have some funding we're going to be doing for contributors for Contributor Day. So I'm not going to promise anything, but I've got to, if everything goes in place as timeline wise, that's kind of going to be one of our efforts to do the Woo is supporting some funding too as well. So
that's nice.
So anyway, yeah. So
yeah.
Well,
cool.
One of the tricky things about speaking though is that they don't let you know until like early April, which is going to be very tough to make plans.
Yeah,
to go.
they say here.
That's one of the. I think it's.
Yeah, they say here.
On the late side.
Call for speakers will close first week of February, and applications will receive a response by the second week of March. But I don't know if that's
The
a
second
response,
week of March.
yay or nay.
Oh,
well, that's what
better.
it says. And then it says speakers will be announced in the second week of April. But I'm guessing that the announcement is just
now
for
it's
public
publicly
consumption.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe you'd find out if you were successful in the second week of March.
Okay.
So that gives you, what was the date of it?
Enough time.
The rest of March, April, May. Yes, just over 2 months.
It's tight.
Right. It is quite tight, isn't it, if you've got to make these applications. Right, Peaches, throw in the comments in thick and fast here. Very helpful. By the way, Amy says that she's loving the community support, the community support happening in real time. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it. It's not normally like this, in all honesty. No, with this form, you don't have to apply to the individual companies. They'll do it for you. Okay. Which
form are you talking about?
Yeah, she says she's going to find the site. So hold tight. Let's see if she...
Diversity in tech, I thought the idea of diversity in tech would be sponsors are also looking at that database to see, I could sponsor this person or that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she comes
it's
back
sort of like a
says
marketplace.
Yeah. She says you can if you want. That is to say, apply to them all one at a time. But the whole point of this site is that they handle it for you. Bod, I really would love it if you were there. Oh.
Wait.
Peacher, do you know Bod? If you don't know Bod, I can give him your...
No, she knows me.
Swap your emails. Okay, perfect.
We know each other.
Okay, ideal. Right. Anyway, that's WordCamp Europe. I don't know if I'll be going. I'd very much like to, but we'll see what we do. Okay, acquisition news. We haven't had any for probably 28 minutes or something. So let's have one quickly. This is to say that the Duplicator plugin, I confess, I've never installed the Duplicator plugin, but 1.5 million other people have. So it's pretty darn popular. It does what you'd imagine. It's a duplicator plugin. It's a copy the site, push it somewhere else kind of thing. But they do have a bunch of commercial licenses. I don't know what you get for that, but they go from $49 to $300 a year, basically. They have been bought by a company that's been buying a lot of late called Awesome Motive. The people who are responsible for the plugin, chap called Bob Riley and somebody called Corey Lamley, I'm guessing you pronounce it. They're actually moving away. They're no longer interested in this plugin, but the team that they've got surrounding it will be moving over to Awesome Motive. It's the usual caveat supply, but they basically said, we have shared our extensive feature wish list, and we know that with Awesome Motive's resources and experience, that wish list will become a reality much faster. So they're passing on the baton. They're not going to be involved. So if you are using Duplicator and this is of interest to you, you probably should be, find out what the plan is. But yeah, more acquisitions. So this one's a big one though, because 1.5 million customers, man alive, that's a boatload of people. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. So anybody want to chip in?
No,
the answer is no.
It's another day in WordPress.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wait 6 minutes. There'll be another bus coming. Don't worry. Yeah. Well, anyway, there you go. That's the thing. I'm pretty much done with directly WordPress news. Let me see if that's true. Yes, I am. But we're going to just stray for 25 minutes or so into some other weird stuff. I want to get everybody's opinion on this story. It's written by iThemes, but honestly, it could have been written by a whole bunch of different media outlets. Oh, LastPass. Oh, how you have made my life difficult over the last few weeks, basically, since you dropped a bomb just before Christmas and then walked away. LastPass has been my password manager of choice ever since it came out. I mean, really early on, I started throwing things in it and thought it was absolutely superb. If you haven't been following the story, several months ago, they announced that some data, that they'd had a breach, but that everything was okay, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. And then just before Christmas, I mean, just before Christmas, like that was a good coincidence, they decided to let everybody know that everybody's data had been stolen. Actually, they didn't say that, but by not saying it was everybody, I think the implication is that it was everybody, because if you're in charge of the PR at a company like LastPass, surely if it wasn't everybody's data that was stolen, you'd say not everybody's data was stolen. And they definitely didn't say that. So rest assured, though, the data is encrypted. They've nicked a blob of more or less encrypted data. Some fields, like the URL fields, are in plain text, which I didn't know. Because obviously you can start to make connections, can't you? If there's a, I don't know, expensivebank.com is in your password list, where are you going to be attacking first? They're all encrypted. But it turns out, in a slightly interesting twist of events, they updated their encryption algorithm. I think it was about 2 years ago, and I forget the name of the one that they moved on to. But inside the settings for LastPass, there was this option to increase the number of hashes. In other words, the number of times it was encrypted. The recommendation that LastPass had was that you did this, quite a bizarre number, but it's 100,000 and 100. So it's 100,100. In other words, when the vault is encrypted, it's hashed 100,000 and a bit more times. Some people, though, have reported that their settings never got updated by LastPass and have been stuck on 5,000. And it's not like they sort of issued a blog post or said, go and change this setting, it's ridiculous. They just, kind of left it. And I think if it's 5,000 hashes, I think there's a pretty good chance in the next few years that some piece of technology will come along which will crack that wide open. I'm nervous, though, because everything's in there, literally everything. So, if you come across my account, please just move on. So I've decided I no longer trust LastPass. Like, the technology and the crypto was probably all fine, but it was nicked. They didn't mention it straight away. And then when they did mention it, it's kind of like, yeah, we'll mention bits of it and we'll do it just before Christmas and we'll put it in a blog post and we won't really let you know what's going on. And the biggest
in a blog post that has a no index meta tag.
Oh, you are kidding. It gets worse. But also the fact that they didn't reach out and say, your vault was nicked. They just put out a generic blog post. So anyway, my trust in LastPass has completely evaporated. I've moved over to Bitwarden. And so I was saying to Bob earlier that I basically sat around during Christmas and didn't do very much. Actually, that's not true. I spent quite a lot of time changing passwords on my high-value stuff. The reason I want to bring this story up, though, is it really hit me pretty hard how much of my life could be turned upside down on the basis of somebody finding out one thing that I know. If you get my LastPass master password, or let's say somebody brute forces that, I am in a lot of trouble. And I really don't know, for example, what my credit card company would say. I don't know what my insurance company would say. I don't know what all of the companies would have to say if they said, well, it's been out in the public domain for ages, we've known since December, you should have changed all your username and passwords. But I got into the habit of making a unique password for every service. I've got something like 1,800 passwords. I can't change them all. I'll be here until I turn grey. But you get the idea, right? It's like, I've chucked everything at LastPass, and I'm kind of thinking, I'm not sure this username password methodology is going to be good into the future. Sorry, I've droned on a lot and I've vented. I apologize.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you feel better after venting?
Okay, tell me about your father. I'll lie down. Yeah, I do. I'm actually a little bit cross about it because this is a company, and the whole pyramid is built upon trust, isn't it? And if the trust evaporates, the whole business has gone down. I'm imagining they won't survive. I'm imagining there'll be class action lawsuits. I'm imagining that the press will just get worse and worse. And the day somebody's vault is absolutely categorically cracked open and it's provable that a hacker did it, then I don't know what I'm going to do, frankly. So, first question: did anybody use LastPass? And you can all smugly tell me you didn't, can't you? Now, yeah. Look, everybody's shaking their head. Oh, damn.
That's why we let you have the floor, buddy.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah. So, I've moved over to an open source piece of software called Bitwarden, which basically does exactly the same thing. So I'm just kind of out of the frying pan into the fire. There are a couple of reasons why I think Bitwarden's tech is superior, but I'm slowly moving everything over there. I do believe that unique passwords is the way to go forward, and I know that my brain is pathetic at remembering things, and I like to go for the big, long, pseudo-random noise password of like 50 characters, so I can't remember that. So I've got to trust something, and I've decided that Bitwarden is where I'm going to go. But there was quite a lot of debate on Mastodon about, things like 1Password and KeyPass, which is another open source variant, which you can just keep on your own system, which is quite a nice thing. But I decided I needed it somewhere in an encrypted cloud. So, yeah. There we go. I've vented. I'm sorry about that, guys. But the wider debate, you must be storing your passwords somewhere. What are you doing with
password?
them all?
One password.
One password.
Yeah, it's been forever, it seems like. And
so what's the thing? Why was that the superior choice in the day? Because when I
think there was a sale going on or something.
See,
I don't know. I don't know. I honestly, I can't even remember why I chose it. It just seemed like it was, I think it was between LastPass and 1Password when I was choosing it. And for some reason, I went with 1Password, and that reasoning escapes me. But, I can't smugly say anything because never say never, but
right.
That's it. That's why I don't understand enough to make probably an informed decision. I mean, I'm not so in depth to be able to look at something and say, okay, this is definitely going to be better, other than what you might read in their comparison marketing, which doesn't do anything. But it's served me well so far. So that's
well, the comparison marketing, at least there'll be like an easy LastPass section.
Yeah, really.
Was hacked, cross. Was hacked, tick. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of people, the two choices that kept coming up. So I put a little vote out, and I also was contributing to other people's votes who were saying, where are you going? Where are you going after LastPass? The most popular one seems to have been Bitwarden. And I think that might have been a price thing, because a personal account on Bitwarden's cloud it's only $10 a year, so it's fairly affordable. Whereas I think 1Password was like 10x that. I think it was $100 a year.
It's sad.
Yeah. But
anyway, maybe that's one of the reasons I actually went to it. I thought, maybe it's a bit more, and they're, putting resources in that need to be put in, but that could be all a fallacy too. So,
I would say that if you just take the pricing analogy, it must be at least 10 times more secure, because Bitwarden's 10 and 1Password. So it's sort of stacked up.
We'll settle with that. That's what I'll say from here on in.
I think broadly the technology is the same. There is this one little extra feature with Bitwarden where they've got this sort of like what do they call it? Like a login code where not only do you have to log in with your username and password, and you can put 2FA, like I've got what's it called, a YubiKey as well. But also there's this passphrase, and it's made up of 5 random but fairly long words. And in order for any external API or anything like that to connect, they have to know not only that you've got the username and password, but if a new service wants to get into it, then they have to provide that token as well. And that's basically unguessable. So it's another layer. Whether or not it's as good as 1Password, I don't know. But yeah, I was a pile of liquid, a puddle of liquid during Christmas, just tearful Nathan crying his LastPass tears.
When I was shopping for a password manager, I was also divided between LastPass and 1Password, and I'm not sure why, but I felt
Yeah.
that I'm not sure why. Like visiting the different like landing pages, 1Password communicated more like a more secure vibe. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if
That's
that's
interesting.
something makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And I followed the whole story about LastPass on Hacker News, and as it was developing, people were posting new discoveries. And one thing that they found out is that LastPass was using CSS as like a feature flag. So in order to disable certain features for certain users, they would add a display none to a block on the page.
Oh, please.
And that's not something you want to hear from the
No.
people that are like keeping your credit card info and your passwords and stuff like that. So I was so glad that I made the right choice.
I listened to a podcast called Security Now, which is every week. It's a guy called Steve Gibson, and we'll talk a bit more about him in just a second. And if you go back like to 2008 or something like that, when the whole product started, it really was like the business, and it was created by this founder who was really inspired to do it all, and it was really great. But it seems that over the time that they've added new features and all of these things have been creeping in, but also they sold to Log Me In. And then it turns out that more recently, I don't know when this happened, it's now owned by a venture capital company, and I can barely imagine a worse custodian of something like a password manager, a company that wants to extract as much value out of the customers as possible. And you can imagine the shortcuts. Should we do this? It'll probably take about 50 hours of development time, or we could just use CSS and hide it.
Yep.
Okay. Let's use the CSS trick, shall we? I don't really know, but yeah, here we go. So Amy says that she's a 1Password user. All right, I've definitely made the wrong decision here, haven't I? I'm going to have to wait till next Christmas and change all over again. Anyway, there you go. But that led me to this. I was mentioning the guy from that podcast called Steve Gibson. He has this fabulous thing which nobody's using, but he spent quite a while building it a few years ago, and it's called Squirrel. And honestly, I haven't the faintest idea how this works, but he's explained it on numerous occasions. In about minute 3 of a 60-minute podcast, you just can't keep up because it's just acronyms and things interacting with other things and ways of making sure it's secure. But he's come up with this idea of this passwordless login through QR codes. And the voodoo is this, right? Website displays QR code on the web page to log in. You have a mobile phone app with data that you put into it. You point it at the QR code. You are immediately logged in. The website knows nothing about you. That it never needed to know your username. You didn't have to make one of those up. It didn't need to know like an email address. It just needed to know that mobile phone connected. And from now on, if that mobile phone or wherever you export what's in that mobile phone to another device, it just knows that that's an account and it's somebody's account and it's unique. And I just think that's actually quite a clever implementation of technology. Of course, the Achilles heel is if you lose the phone, you are utterly screwed. But then again, with my LastPass account and Bitwarden, if memory fails me and I can't remember my master password, basically the same is true. So anyway, this is the WordPress plugin, which will allow you to be able to do that. It's called Squirrel Login by Daniel Persson. I mean, I'm not going to recommend that you do it because I think probably Steve Gibson and 4 other people on the planet are using it. But it's quite a neat idea. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I'm droning on. Let's move on quickly. Amber Hines, this one's for you. I was chatting to Amber Hines at WordCamp US, and we were having a few drinks, and there were several other people there, and I told her that that the word awesome was used too much, and I just thought I'd mention that she posted a reply to me this week saying that apparently it's been decided that the word goat, greatest of all time, is being used too much as well.
That's true.
So it's amazing. So what I'm thinking, can something be awesome and amazing at the same time?
I think awesome. Right? Oh no, you've got me started now. You know, the LastPass thing built me up, and now I'm ready to go. I think that on the spectrum of like really, really bad over here, I don't know what the word for really, really bad is, but you know, you got awful and terrible, and eventually it goes. And I think at the end of the spectrum, the opposite end of really, really, really good is awesome. And once you've said the word awesome, I mean, awesome to me is like watching your first child being born. It's literally you're in awe. Your jaw has hit the ground and there's dribble coming out, and everybody's looking at you going, "What the hell? That's awesome."
And that's awesome, right?
So that's a different in language now. It's like you post a tweet, you know, some little nonsense, and awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's not awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so
it's the most
away
overused. I won't get into it either.
My conversation with Amber Hines is, as soon as you've exhausted that end of the spectrum, where do you go? It's got to be really awesome or amazingly awesome, and eventually the language kind of means nothing. So anyway, goat, greatest of all time. Not allowed to say it anymore, apparently.
Rest in
There's
peace.
a whole load of banished words from this year. Goat.
I subscribe to the idea of banning goat.
Yeah, goat,
Yeah.
greatest of all time. Yeah, you see it all the time now, don't you, on social media? Especially around like the World Cup. Lionel Messi steps onto GOAT, greatest footballer of all time. I have no idea if he's the greatest footballer of all time, but absolutely, apparently, is another one. Gaslighting, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Quiet quitting. Amazing. Yeah, I think amazing should be substituted.
Irregardless is one of those. Yeah, that's like a non.
Is that
it's
even a
word?
word?
No, it's like a word that's just interjected because you can actually say it without stumbling over it. So you're quite impressive that you can do that.
Isn't irregardless a bit like saying I won't not do that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it like
because you've already said it and then you just add irregardless. So it's
we are learning things on this episode. So the list of things that this university lecturer thinks ought to be banished are GOAT, the acronym for greatest of all time, inflection point, quiet quitting, gaslighting, moving forwards. I confess I am so I use that one. I like that one. I use that. It's really not saying anything, is it? It's like tomorrow or something like that. Amazing. Does that make sense? Irregardless, absolutely. It is what it is. And I'm going to add another number 11, and that is using the phrase, at the end of the day, which I just hear all the time. What happens at the end of the day? We all go to bed, surely. That's it. Anyway, that'll be in the show notes. That's in.
I'm going to add one to it. I'm going to add the word. Now, it's sort of not used quite as much, and this was a big bugaboo for me about 10, 15, 20 years ago, which is so. Just the word so. Every sentence had to start with so. So when it's sort of like a warm up.
You just did it.
I did.
Literally just
what's wrong with it?
Every sentence said so.
Well, but you know what I mean. And it just drove me nuts that somebody would get up and start speaking, and the first words, so today we're going to, so whatever. And I
podcast guests use it a lot.
Yes.
It's one of those segue words.
It's a warm up. It's a warm.
It's like somebody has said something and you're thinking of it in your head, and then you're going on to explain, and it's
called an interlocutor, I think.
Yeah, it's the word that's used sort of to trigger the brain for other stuff. So and it just
it's very easy.
The great thing that is I don't hear it, or maybe I'm so used to it now, I don't hear it quite as much as I did or was conscious of it like 15, 20 years ago.
I'll send you one of my podcast transcripts in these times, and you'll see.
Search for the
So
word
please
so.
do.
Yes, so
please do.
the other one that I have found, which that nobody's really trying to describe anything with this word, so it's a bit like so, but one of the words that I found has crept into British English, and I think it's come from American English, is like. Like is
that's
added.
been around forever.
It's peppered. You could have 4 likes in a sentence, and not one of them means anything. But it's become so common to drop it
like
in.
You haven't talked to my daughter lately. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah, like that. Yeah.
Oh,
Like that, yeah.
my God.
But when you actually listen to it and you're really paying attention to when the likes are used, it's kind of whoa, it's such a superfluous word. It's
a word that's used for when you don't know what else to say.
Right.
That's it.
But but the thing is, like, as a non, like,
you just did it.
So
perfect. Yes.
Since English is not my first language,
I'm being very mean. I'm sorry.
You're lucky.
No problem. Like, the thing that I noticed is that the more nervous I am. So, like, if we play back this podcast, at the beginning I was like quite nervous, because I'm always nervous when I do stuff like this. But as the show progresses and I start to feel more comfortable, the likes and the souls, they start to go away. Because at the beginning, I think it's just it's a way to buy time. Like, I'm trying to find the words and.
Yeah, is it like it's like a holding word? It like buys you an extra half a second of time. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
it sure does.
It is.
Thought about that. That wasn't on the list, but I'm sorry, we completely segued there. But there was a whole bunch of things. But I just thought it was a fascinating conversation to be had. Let's move on very quickly, because I do apologize. We're running out of time, so I'll try to get through them. We'll just briefly go on to some of these things. Ever so briefly, a couple of YouTubers this week, or last week, or the week before, whatever it was, British YouTubers, I believe, they came out with a new drink, and it was so popular that almost immediately people were listing it on eBay for $10,000. And I just thought, go and give it to a hospital or something, rather than this bottle of drink, which is probably just full of sugar. But it did speak to me, though, of the power of YouTube, in that people can be persuaded that something is so groundbreakingly culturally significant that it's worth queuing up for. And that was the real story about this. People queued up from the previous night. So they queued through the night for this drink, which was going to be available in a really popular supermarket chain. So it's not like there's 50 bottles. It was going to fill shelves. People queued up because a couple of YouTubers said, got this new drink. So, if you're a YouTuber, all power to you.
Yeah.
Where are we now? Bob, tell us about this open source website, because you brought this to my attention.
Somebody shared it on Twitter, and I think it just caught me because, and I'll keep it short, 2 things. One is, I think, and depending on your resources, whether these are in person or whatever, if you're, in into WordPress as much as you are, I think it's time to, people need to step out of the bubble and find good, like-minded conferences to, say, enrich yourself, and not always just say, hey, when's the next WordCamp? When's the next WordCamp? I mean, I kind of gone by this, in my previous life, gone to several different conferences. So I think it's just, it's step out the bubble, and especially for people that are kind of getting that humdrum, WordPress, I'm kind of getting burnout or whatever. Sometimes something like this, kind of reaching into other pockets of open source, can revitalize you a little bit and just put a new perspective on things. So I think it's just something that isn't done enough, and that, I'm sure there are plenty of people that do this and go to different conferences, but just don't get trapped into one focus, expand your mind, I guess.
Pretty incredible, isn't it? The list is really very, very long indeed. And they're dotted all over the world, and many of them span multiple days. You name it, this page has got it. And I'm sure it's not an exhaustive list, but I think we've passed things like Python, Laravel, Linux, something called KubeCon Europe. I don't know what that is. Python conference, Python in Namibia. There's a whole load in here. So yeah, really interesting. And I think you're right. If you are getting a bit fatigued, then yeah, this is a great resource. I will put it into the show notes because the URL is long enough that I won't be able to say it very easily. So I'll put it in the show notes to come out tomorrow. And Bob, another one you submitted. This is
just real quick.
Work.
Yeah. This is something I've been on for a while. And the only reason I wanted to mention it is I think we're all, looking at social, what should we be on? And it's not really a social platform. I kind of compare it to a LinkedIn for creators. And it's a lot of people, I'm a fan of LinkedIn. A lot of people don't like LinkedIn. That's fine. There's a lot of opportunities. And one of the things is I share a lot of my content on there, but you basically create all these little tags there that shows your interests. And if you're somebody that wants to just come across, people post opportunities basically there. Hey, I'm doing this podcast. I need guests, or I'm a person that's looking to speak on podcasts. And you can subscribe to different opportunities, see what's going on. Some can be a little salesish, but it's a way to, it's a different perspective. Like I said, it's not a social site where you're talking to each other, but it's a good resource to see people put up, I want to collaborate. Some of them are kind of, sometimes lame, but other times something might click and you might find somebody that's, hey, this might be worth reaching out to this person. And it's not a, constant battering. People aren't battering you. They post it. You can subscribe to it and see what opportunities are available out there. And if something you've been looking or wanting to get into or speaking on a podcast or maybe even being on, some conference or something. So it's a very interesting site. I've enjoyed it, just going to it every once in a while, look at what's going on. And I've had several people reach out. I swear that, right. I get several people. I haven't, done it yet, but they reach out and say, hey, we'd like you to be on our podcast. And I look at what the podcast is about. Maybe it's not quite the right fit, but at least there, it's an opportunity. And some people are always saying, where's a variety of a place where I can, see what podcasts are out there and what people are looking for or whatever. Yeah. And it just might give you that perfect fit, anyway.
I sort of struggle with LinkedIn because it always feels a bit too, how to describe it? There's just something which I don't gel with over there. I don't
we'll
really
talk
know
about
what
that
is.
sometime.
Yeah.
I'll win you over.
Oh, okay. So you sort of tag yourself. You've created these tags yourself, or are these predefined tags and you've just selected them?
Yeah, and you can just put a bunch in it, and then you can see, obviously click on that and see other people that have tagged themselves as that, and you can connect with them. So it's just it's a very mellow kind of networking. It's more of a opportunity type of networking versus just talking to each other and saying what you ate for breakfast.
I guess the proof is if it gets you any people contacting you, and if it has done, several people have done that. Yeah, that's really interesting. So this is Polywork.
And one other thing, let me just throw in, one other thing is a lot of people will do, it's not just posting stuff. You can post projects. You can actually, instead of just highlighting a post or something, you can say, hey, I'm working on this. And you could almost make a live feed or a feed of your project progress if you wanted to share it with people, or I'm working on this. It's just it's very interesting. I just say that a lot of people out there that build sites and into it, just look at it a bit. It's easy to open up a profile and stuff, and you're going to use it however you decide to use it, but you'll get a feel for it.
Can I ask how your content's getting in there?
I just posted in there. Yeah, I just go.
Right. Yeah, you're writing it into Polywork.
Yeah, and that's not really the power of it. Right. I'm just putting it there just to have it be in another place. I think the real power of this is the opportunities, the connecting with people, looking for partnerships or whatever. There's a lot buried there that could be used for a lot of people. So
great idea. Okay, so polywork.com. Again, I'll link to it in the show notes and you can go and check it out for yourself. And last, but by no means least, no, not last, because Bod's got something I've just remembered. Second to last is this. This is basecamp.com/shapehop. This came from Arindo, but I confess, Arindo, I didn't even have time to examine it. So I'm all ears. What are we looking at?
So there's this project management software called Basecamp. Not sure if you guys heard about it. It's one of the first ones that came out. And they have a pretty specific way of working. And they've been shipping consistently for a very long time. And they are a tiny company for the amount of customers that they have. So up to a couple of months ago, maybe a couple of years ago, they were like 30, 40 people tops. And we're talking like multi-million users here. And we've been like on our company, we've been transitioning from we've been growing the team like a lot. So we're 11 people now.
Ooh.
And I started to see myself in a position where I was spending most of my time trying to like make sure that projects made sense and defining like due dates and stuff like that. And the scope kept changing, and we missed deadlines, and I think like last year was the year that I spent pretty much the entirety of last year working. And when I look back at the things that we actually managed to ship, it doesn't like the account. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
The amount of things that we put out to the world, it's not compatible with the amount of work that I did last year.
Right.
So I realized that there was something wrong in there. So we decided to try this. It's a methodology. It's a book, but it's like in its entirety on that site. And
it's totally
pretty
for
simple
free.
to do.
Huh.
Yeah, it's totally for free. Yeah. And it's very easy to understand. The methodology is pretty simple. They have a couple of key ideas that I find pretty interesting. So one of the key points of the entire method is that you have a fixed time, but variable scope. So you define the number of weeks each cycle of development will have. So in our case, it's 6 weeks. And whatever the problem you're trying to solve, there is a version of that problem, that of a solution to that problem that you and your team can develop in those 6 weeks.
Interesting.
So if things start like to escape you in terms of like scope creep and things like that, you start to cut the scope. So you start to cut features out. And the idea is that by the end of the 6 weeks, you have a version of a solution for that problem. But the idea is to focus on the consistency of shipping and having a process that makes sense and that is repeatable in the long run. So we'll be trying that.
Yeah, this
how it
sounds
goes,
really
yeah.
interesting. I think everybody gets fixated with the other way, don't they? You know, you've got the time. Hopefully, you can squeeze whatever the project features ought to be into the time available, and then feel terrible guilt, or indeed get told off by clients because you don't manage it that way. So I do like the transformation there of, oh, it's a time thing. Yeah, that's interesting. So this is I have read a book by Jason Fried before, and I was looking for it on my shelf because I know it's up there somewhere, but it's hidden somewhere. He wrote a book with somebody, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. I have a feeling it was a silver cover, but it was a really interesting read. He's one of those like unbelievably successful people where you read the book and you think, wouldn't it be nice to be Jason Fried? Multiple serial success story. So this is basecamp.com/shape up. Yeah, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I will add it into the show notes as well. That's brilliant. And Bod, you wanted to say something, but it wasn't a URL, so I've not got it on I've not got a site up or anything.
Yeah, I'm just going to talk this through. So I've been hired by InstaWP, a company that where you can create websites in an instant. Really, it's sort of like, it's really a developer, an agency dream, in that it's like having local development in the cloud, if that makes any sense. It does. Anyway, so one of the videos, I've been hired to do a series of instructional videos for their clients. And one of them is on, initially it was, well, how do you take an Elementor site and turn it into a WordPress Gutenberg site? And I did a lot of research on it, and I've had some experience doing it. And it just really sort of, it's too idiosyncratic to really do a video on this instructional video. But one of the things I came across was the idea of using Elementor and Gutenberg together, leveraging the best of both systems. Now, yeah, I had never really thought of doing it that way, but because everybody always, when they do a project, they always say, well, what should we use, Elementor or Gutenberg? And that's not the question. The question is, how do we use both? And to leverage the both, and there's definitely a way. And here's how it goes. So for Elementor, you're going to use the theme builder parts. So headers, footers, big sections that repeat throughout the entire site. That's just the overall framework. And then the content area, if you will be done with Gutenberg. I found that a really good theme to use for this is GeneratePress, because GeneratePress lets you do all the settings in Customizer that you would do in Elementor. That settings meaning really style, appearance kind of settings. And so you might say, well, what about if I want to use like a widget in Elementor? Let's say there's a carousel widget or something that you don't get natively with Gutenberg. Not a problem. You just create a section in Elementor. Let's say you're doing like a carousel, and then you bring it in to Gutenberg with a shortcode, with an Elementor shortcode. So that's really getting the best of both worlds, because Elementor's got a lot of performance and overhead and all that. You're not using a lot of that, just a little bit, but you're using you have access to all of its widgets. In Elementor, you can just insert those into the Gutenberg blocks, and it's phenomenal. It's just, I'm working on, so I'm going to do that video, but at the same time, I'm developing a new site using this technique, and it is absolutely fantastic. There's so many really cool things about it. I'm going to really I have a feeling, spend this year on this entire concept of using both, because it's a very rich subject, and there's just a tremendous area to explore how to use both to the best. One of the nice things too is that you future-proof your site. So if one day you say, Gutenberg now is so good that we really don't need to use Elementor anymore. Exactly right. You keep your theme, but now you'll take out the header and the footer, right? Exactly, into Gutenberg. So a lot of really good things.
Isn't it nice when you Isn't it nice when you find something that you really like? Like,
oh my God,
quite often I go for weeks or possibly even months, and it's like, I haven't quite stumbled across something that's really, really excellent. And when you do find it, it's a pleasure.
And it is so cool, because this is a cross-project finding. In other words, you'd be using this across different kinds of projects right now, which is fantastic, which I love. So I wish I had thought of the idea. But I didn't. I did it through research, but it's really cool.
Nice. You gave me an interesting idea for maybe a plugin.
Now, what's that? Let me hear what you have to. No, are you thinking of a plugin to convert Elementor to Gutenberg? No.
No, but maybe a plugin that allows you to configure the Elementor widget right inside the Gutenberg editor as if it was a native block.
Right. So you wouldn't have to use a
Ooh.
shortcode, right? You wouldn't have to use a
Yeah.
shortcode.
Oh,
Excellent. Very
you hear it
cool.
here
Interesting.
first.
Very cool.
So,
Yeah.
given that you've got this
Interesting
new
idea.
shape-up methodology, we expect it in roughly 6 weeks, I'd say.
Yeah, I was going to say, or else
Right.
somebody else will do it. You better get on it now. It's out in the wild.
Yeah. Very
Well,
interesting.
sorry, I apologise to you, the three of you. We've kept you significantly longer than was intended. And, you know, Mark Westgard, founder of WS Forms, typical, shows up at the last minute and expects a mention. What can I say? Hello, Mark. That's nice of you to join us. And Bob, Amy says that she tried, what was it called? Polywork.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
lots
And
of people
I think the point is not to go to it as a social network. Don't think of it that way. Think of it as a resource for opportunities and connecting with people. You know, it's not a social network.
Well, appreciate all of your contributions this week. We'll put this out tomorrow. It comes out 7 a.m. UK time. What was I thinking? But it always does. It's like the most glamorous time of day when everybody's paying attention, of course. But it'll be out then. But I'm sorry, Bod, and I'm sorry, Arindo. Bob knows what's coming. The slightly humiliating wave that we always do at the end of the show. Basically,
I
put
think I know
our
what
hands
this
up.
is.
You know what's coming.
I've seen this.
We put the
I've
hands up.
seen
We all
this.
have to do it at the same time. And then I use this as the album up. There we go. That's about as bad as it gets. It didn't take too long. Bob flickered at that point. His internet connection rejected it.
Yeah. I've got a little button here.
Yeah. Well, thank you to anybody that's made a comment. Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week and we'll see you then. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Nathan.
Bye.
Thank you.